Dear Mr. Okelek, dear Mr. O'Rourke, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me express my gratitude and thanks for this excellent opportunity to address this respected audience in a very respected Institute for International and European Affairs, one of the leading institutes in strategic thinking. I will discuss on Turkish foreign policy, but before, I want to underline certain issues. Really, I have been an admirer of Irish culture and Ireland, but yesterday and today, it was so impressive for me to visit some institutions, not political meetings only. As an academician, I had a chance to visit Trinity College, UCD, and now the Institute for International and European Affairs. I am even now more admirer than before, especially after seeing long room yesterday, the library in Trinity College. As a former academician, I had a chance to see several libraries in several parts, in different corners of the world, but this was the best and the most impressive library I have ever seen. I congratulate the Irish tradition and nation for having such a library and for having the book of Kells. So such a strong tradition that now we can understand how Irish people in different countries are so influential because of this long history, tradition, and adaptation to the new environment. In that sense, Turkish and Irish cultures are very similar. We have a strong archives in Istanbul, one of the biggest on earth. And as Turkish and Irish nations, we are nations of migration, let me say. Migration from regions to the regions, from country to the country. Yesterday, after the political meetings, I was able to escape to bookstore. This is the only escape we can do in this hectic diplomatic schedule, and I feel very comfortable in bookstores. And in one bookstore, I found excellent books on history of Ireland, Irish nation, and Celts, which refer to Anatolia, Galatia, as the origin of Irish people, and shows all the way of migration from Galatia up to Ireland, and from Ireland to Australia, to United States, everywhere in the world. Like the history of Turkish nation, now we have Turkish citizens in Germany, in Europe, in many regions. Therefore, we understand each other very well. The second was even much more interesting. I went to a second bookstore, and in 5 minutes, I discovered Sadi, very big philosopher and poet of the East, of Turkish and Persian culture. His book, Gülistan, the translation, English translation, published in 1906. It was interesting for me to find such a classic in Dublin. So this shows how a dynamic, but at the same time, traditional culture is surviving in Ireland. First, I want to underline this, and therefore, in fact, maybe if, although we are in two different corners of the world, of Europe, in Eastern and Western corner, Turkish and Irish nations can understand each other better than many other nations. And because of this geographical compatibility, let me say, Turkey is an access for Europe to Asia, while through migration and through other channels, Ireland is an access to transatlantic and American continent. Making this analogy, I can say Turkish and Irish cooperation in coming years may contribute to international affairs as well as to European affairs. Let me make a small change in my presentation in the name of your institute, Institute for International and European Affairs. In my analysis, I will make an international, European, and Turkish affairs, so that there will be 3 levels of analysis in my approach and try to give a general outlook general perspective how, as Turkey, we perceive the events in international and European arena. When we look at the first international level, today we are facing a great global transformation. And there is a huge challenge in front of us, both in political, economic, and cultural spheres. The political order is in such a transformatory stage, so that today we have many geopolitical issues as challenges in front of us, as well as reforms of international organizations, like reforms in the United Nations system. When we look at the history, after we can see such big transformations in international global system, and the international actors try to respond to these transformations. Like in 17th century, the end of the Holy Roman German Empire and the emergence of Westphalian system, parallel to the mercantilism and to the Reformation and Renaissance, big intellectual moments, intellectual, political, cultural transformations went hand in hand. Similarly, after French Revolution, parallel to Industrial Revolution in Britain, we had a huge transformation and big wars like 30 Years' War, this time Napoleonic Wars, and we had Congress of Vienna, a new order. After the First World War, we had similar challenges, the end of the traditional imperial structures, and we had a big economic crisis, the first global economic crisis in 1929, and also the era of colonial structures. After the Second World War, we had UN system in political sense, Bretton Woods system in economic sense, and the rise of national identities, the emergence of many nation states. National identity brought the emergence of national cultures. And throughout the Cold War, we had these zones, Soviet, West, Warsaw Pact, Western confrontation. And the separation was based on this. Now, in international arena, we have many risks, and still we are looking for a new international conference, let me say. I don't mean conference like a meeting, but international convention, because there are new power centers emerging, and the old structures sometimes cannot carry all this burden. In 1990s, after the Cold War, we faced these challenges, political, economic, and cultural challenges in regional level. For example, crisis in Balkans, Bosnia, Kosovo, crisis in Caucasia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Karabakh, Ossetia, Abkhazia, in the Middle East, in Afghanistan. These were seen as regional issues, and these problems were frozen. In one of my articles, I called the era from 1989 until 2001, 12 years, as the era of long ceasefires. All the problems were frozen. And ceasefire means either war or peace. From that time until now, still there is a discussion on a global order. What will be the basic dimension? For us, there should be a representative, inclusive global political system. United Nations should be adapted to this new situation. And there should not be any frozen conflicts anymore. We have to have an international commitment to end the frozen conflicts. Why these frozen conflicts are important for us is important. I will try to clarify. In economic dimension, international arena, in 1990s we had regional economic crisis, like Asian crisis, Russian crisis, Latin American, Mexican crisis, Brazilian crisis. Now we are facing global economic crisis. In cultural sense, in 1990s, we had regional, let me say, ethno-nationalistic confrontations, like Serbs, Croats, Bosniaks, Armenian, Azeri, Georgian, Abkhazian. Now we have more global cultural confrontations or cultural issues to be resolved. Either there will be an inclusive political, economic, and cultural atmosphere, or we will be facing big challenges. As Turkey, we are trying to address to these issues. Today, Turkey is member of United Nations Security Council, non-permanent seat. Turkey is involved almost in all frozen conflicts around us. If you tell me, for example, now 10 main issues in the agenda of United Nations, at least 9 of them are directly related to Turkey. Iranian issue, Balkan question, as Mr. O'Rourke mentioned, Bosnian issue, Kosovo issue, Caucasian, Afghanistan. There was one item which was not in our agenda, North Korean nuclear issue, and last year we have been appointed as the chairman of the sanctions against North Korea in the United Nations. So this is so important. In economic field, Turkey is member of G20. And just to give you an idea, in 2002, when our government was first established, Turkey was the 26th biggest economy in the world. Today, after 7 years, Turkey is 16th biggest economy in the world. So in 7 years, we took 10 more advanced in that list. In cultural sense, Turkey is leading with Spain alliance of civilizations, where today we have around more than 100 states and international organizations are member of this alliance. We are, this year only, let me say, we are chairing Southeastern European Cooperation Platform. We will be chairing SICA, Security and Cooperation Organization of Asia, and we will be chairing Council of Europe in the second half of this year. So throughout the Euro-Asia, there are 3 basic institutions, and we will be chairing this year. We are very active in OIC, Organization of Islamic Conference. Secretary General is a Turkish. We have strategic dialogue with special relation with GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council. We are observer in African Union, observer member, and Latin American Summit. We have been invited as a guest, and we are also guest. Last week I was special speaker, guest speaker in Arab League meeting, and we are also having now a special link with Pacific Forum as well, and also ASEAN. What are we trying to do? Here, before going into some of the details of our foreign policy, let me give you another European perspective. As a world citizen, I try to identify the main challenges in front of us. A new geopolitical order, a new international organization which is inclusive, a new international economic order, which doesn't refer only to the needs of the developed G8, but also to the concerns of G20 and other continents. A new cultural order, which is much more open-minded, inclusive, because there are now new cultural centers emerging in Asia, China, India, Muslim world, African culture, Latin American culture. We cannot be only having just a Eurocentric culture. There are many new elements around us. These are the issues of the, as a citizen of the world, as an individual, as a human being, what I see. As a Turkish minister, I will clarify more, but as a European now, I am asking basic questions. If this is the trend, what is the European future in this new international order? Will Europe be a leading player in this international context? Will Europe be active in all these geopolitically important regions or not? Will Europe be active and leading force of world economy, like during Industrial Revolution, like during the spread of colonial economy and integration with the world, or like EU in last 2 decades? Will that trend continue, or will Europe, an old, less dynamic, static entity, in the future. From cultural perspective, the question is there as well. We led, as Europeans, the cultural events of the world in the last 3-4 centuries. But we should not be very overconfident. In the history of humanity, 3-4 centuries is not a big period. Before there was big Chinese culture, Indian culture, Muslim culture, Mediterranean culture. Now, the philosophy of enlightenment, the rising forces in Europe, which led certain values to the other parts of the world, will that continue? And Europe will be reintegrating with the humanity in a much more inclusive manner, or will Europe be a uniform, inward-looking, culturally inward-looking continent? This is a challenge. And the answer, whether Turkey will be a member of Europe or not, the future of our accession to Europe is directly related to this question. It is not a Turkish national ambition only. It is a national ambition. We will continue in our way to European integration. But European friends also, our counterparts, should reassess the situation in international environment. The attitude towards Turkish accession to Europe is not only a question of one enlargement, but the future of Europe. I am asking this, some people are asking this from negative perspective, as if Turkey will bring risks to EU, as if Turkey will be culturally different in European continent. These are irrelevant. If there are questions, I can answer. But I am asking from a much more prospective and future-oriented perspective, I am asking this question. If Europe wants to be a global power in political, economic, and cultural sense, as Europeans, we have to accept the challenges in front of us. We should not close our eyes, and we should not be dreaming or living in the past. The future will bring much more big challenges. Are we ready to face these challenges? Our opinion as Turkey, if Turkey is in EU, that challenges will be overcome in a much more creative manner. If Turkey being rejected as member, then in fact it will be rejection of the future global integration of Europe, European integration to the these political, economic, and cultural order. That will make Europe much more static, much less inclusive, and more inward-looking. As a European, assume that I am not Minister of Turkey. If I was an Irish, or British, or a German, or a French, as a student of history, I would suggest to my leaders that for the future of Europe, Turkey should be part of Europe. That otherwise, it will be difficult to make Europe as a global player. Now coming to Turkish, international, European, and Turkish perspective. Why? Why is it so important? In 2001, I wrote a book called Strategic Debt. From that historical analysis, I asked a simple question. As an academician, at that time when I wrote the book, I didn't plan to be minister or chief advisor. I was planning to give long lectures like today in UCD today here and other places, and I like to give lectures rather than negotiating on technical details of diplomacy. It was a 600 pages book. The purpose, what I try to do is, I try to reinterpret the geography and history of Turkey as two parameters human beings cannot change. Geography and history are given to you. We didn't choose that Turkey is in the middle of many crises. And we cannot say today, for example, Turkish geography is very risky. Take Turkish peninsula in somewhere close to Ireland, which is less risky. You cannot do it. You are there, you have to accept that. Or historical flow, you cannot change. You cannot say we have a very complex history, we should be forget our history. No, this is your history. This is your, what you can do only. You cannot change, but you can reinterpret your geography and your history. For example, in Cold War era, Turkish geography was important. In all international textbooks in Cold War era, Turkey was called wing country of NATO. Turkish geography was important as a big size, big geography, to prevent Soviets. At that time, European allies were praising our big geography size because it was a barrier in front of Soviets to come down to the hot seas. Now the same big geography is a barrier in front of us to join to Europe for some Europeans. And Russians are coming to Antalya, to Turkey. Ultimately, they came to hot seas as tourists, not as military. That was the geography. But when, in post-Cold War era, we realized that our geography is not wing, it is a central geography, a pivotal geography, where Turkey has multidimensional geography. Turkey is a European country, an Asian country, neighbor to Africa, a Balkan country, a Caucasian country, a Middle Eastern country, a Black Sea country, a Mediterranean country, a Caspian Sea country, even a Gulf country through access. So you cannot have a just one-dimensional foreign policy. You have to, today I am in Ireland, and this is my most relaxing day visit because we don't have any problem with Ireland, nothing to negotiate except expressing our good feelings, how Ottoman Sultan sent help during potato famine in 1847, how Irish Parliament sent a message to Turkish National Assembly in 1923. There are so many good things we share with Ireland. No thanks. But one of my ear is in Balkan issues, because Eyüp Ganic, we are, as Mr. O'Rourke mentioned, in last 5 months, we have been very active to close the gap between Serbia and Bosnia Herzegovina, and we achieved a breakthrough. After many years, we convinced Bosnians to send an ambassador to Belgrade and convinced Serbian friends to accept the candidate of Bosnians. It took 4 or 5 months, and now we are in the next stage. There will be more confidence-building measures. Suddenly, last week, Eyüp Ganic, former vice president, was arrested in London. And I contacted with British colleagues, with Serbians, in order to ease the tension. And when I was entering the room, I got an excellent news that Eyüp Ganic was released. So one of your ears should be in Balkans. The other one, on the way when I was coming, one of our advisors called me that there is a special message from Syria regarding the process. So I asked them to send him, as a Turkish minister, wherever you are, you have to have at least 5 ears, 2 or 3 brains. Otherwise, if you miss the timing, then you will be losing. And we are not superpower. We know our limits. But our geography does not see your limits. They only see your assets. If there is a crisis in Bosnia Herzegovina, when there was crisis, for many people, it was a crisis in the center of Europe. It is important. But for Turks, all the Bosnians turned their face to Istanbul, to Ankara, and said, help us. And thousands of them came as refugees to Turkey. And Ali Izetbegovic, the first thing he did was to call our president, our people. And whenever there is a crisis in Balkans, we have a refugee camp in Edirne. It is like a barometer. If you want to understand how things are going in Balkans, look at that refugee camp. Because if there is a crisis in Bosnia, all of the guests staying there are Bosniaks. If there is a crisis in Kosovo, all Albanians. Macedonia, all Macedonians. Why? Because in Turkey we have more Bosniaks than in Bosnia, more Albanians than in Albania, more Abkhazians than in Abkhazia in Caucasia, more Kurds than in Iraq. We have all. When Kurds faced problem with Saddam, he didn't turn their face to other place. In one night, 500,000 came to our border. And this is how Turkey, these frozen conflicts around us, suddenly brought all the challenges in front of us, challenges of history. And you cannot escape. You have to deal with this. What did we do? In 2002, when our government was established, I identified in one of my, at that time I was not so visible because I was chief advisor. There was no need to be too visible. I was giving only one interview every year. In the first interview, I said I identified 6 principles of Turkish policy, foreign policy, let me say. I will share these 6 principles with you, then I will let you ask questions. The first principle is the balance between security and freedom. After second, this is very important, not only for Turkey, for all international and national orders. Because if you ignore security for freedom, you will have a chaos. If you sacrifice freedom for security, you have a dictatorial regime. If you want to have a legitimacy in international or national level, you must provide both security and freedom together. That is the ultimate legitimacy, because a system, a political system, is legitimate only if he assures, that system assures to the citizens that that system will provide highest freedom without limiting security, or highest security without risking freedom. In the world after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the area of security, the area of freedom was enlarged. There was more democratization, more liberalization. But the security of Bosniaks in Bosnian War were ignored for 3 years, for example. After 9/11, this time, the general tendency was to enlarge zone of security and limit freedoms in many countries, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for bad reasons. If you have certain names, it was difficult to go through an airport, especially Muslim names. In Turkey, immediately after 9/11, we implemented huge democratization packages, and which was compatible with European Union. And I don't know each of you when you went last to Turkey, but if you went last time 6-7 years ago, please go again. Please follow what Turks are discussing. Certain untouchable issues today are normal issues in Turkey, like Kurdish broadcasting by Turkish, in Turkish official TV and private TVs. There are many issues which I don't want to go into details, but there's a huge change in Turkish political system. Our objective is security and freedom together. Although there was a rise of terrorist attacks, we didn't implement extraordinary law. Within the normal administrative structure, we tried to accept this challenge. Secondly, in order to have security and freedom in your home, you must be sure that you have good relations with your neighbors. And we implemented zero problems with our neighbors policy. Of course, we don't blame our neighbors or us in the past, because of several reasons. We had problems, like with Bulgaria and Turkey. They were Warsaw Pact, member of Warsaw Pact. We were in NATO. Our border was like a wall, Chinese wall. It was difficult to go and come in. Similarly with Georgia, with Syria, because they were allied with Soviets. But now, with all these neighboring countries, we have excellent relations, because Turkish borders are not natural borders, as I mentioned. The only natural territory between Turkey and any neighboring country is Iran. For the last 350 years, our territory with Iran did not change. What we want to do, we want to develop excellent relations with all neighbors, so that there will be less risk, maximum interest, joint interest. Recently, we adopted a new policy establishing high-level strategic council meetings, joint cabinet meetings with neighboring countries. With Syria, we did it. We signed 51 agreements in October. With Iraq, in joint cabinet meeting, our Prime Minister took 10 ministers to Iraq, to such a risky capital. It was surprising for many people. Half of the cabinet of Turkey was in Baghdad to show the solidarity and to sign 48 agreements. Now we are implementing the same policy, the same council meeting, joint cabinet meetings with Greece, with Russia, and with some other countries as well. So that we want to have economic interdependence. I will come why. There were two missing elements in our neighborhood. One was Cyprus, the other one was Armenia. On Cyprus in 2004, in order to solve the Cypriot question, we worked very hard. Those who lived 2004, February, March, they would appreciate Turkish and Turkish Cypriot effort. We encouraged Secretary General Annan and the European Union and United Nations, international community, Britain, to achieve a solution. A solution was agreed in Bürgenstock in Switzerland and agreed by all four parties, Turkey, Greece, Turkish Cypriots, Greek Cypriots. Unfortunately, that piece was rejected by Greek Cypriots with 75% no vote and accepted by Turkish Cypriots with 65% yes vote. I don't want to go into details of Cyprus question, but if that plan, peace plan, was accepted by Greek Cypriots, today we would have an excellent, peaceful, united Cyprus with good relations with Turkey. That historic opportunity was missed. With Armenia, we worked very hard. We made some unilateral gestures, like opening our airspace in 2003, allowing many Armenians, immigrants, workers to come in Turkey, etc. And also we offered to form an historical commission in 2005. Afterwards, we had a successful, very successful process, confidential process of negotiation, and we signed two protocols in October by me and my Armenian colleague Nalbanyan. Unfortunately, we have some difficulties today. If there are questions, we can discuss. But our objective is same. We want to achieve a comprehensive settlement in Cyprus, and we want to normalize our relations with Armenia, like with other neighbors. We want to have this all good. The third principle was active, in fact, proactive engagement, preventive diplomacy in surrounding regions, especially in Balkans, Caucasia, and Middle East. Therefore, what we define is not a crisis-oriented, but vision-oriented foreign policy that we want to have as the biggest economy of all these regions. We want to have political stability and prosperity in these regions. Therefore, we want to have high-level political dialogue, economic interdependency, a common understanding of security, and multicultural coexistence in Middle East, in Balkans, and Caucasia. These are four values which we implement everywhere. Therefore, I will just count, I don't know how many minutes do I have, but just I will give some examples. What are these vision-oriented policies? Like, for example, usual practice in the Middle East, or in Balkans, or in Caucasia is a crisis emergence. All international and regional actors focus on that crisis. When that hot issue was frozen, people forget it, like Gaza. Now, last year everybody was talking in Gaza because there was a hot issue. But now nobody is talking about Gaza because there is no direct fighting every day. It is forgotten. But the crisis is still there as a potential, big potential crisis. Our policy is not to wait until crisis emerges. Act before crisis. Like the best example is Syria-Israel indirect talks. Personally, I was the mediator between two sides, appointed by Prime Minister. For almost 3 years, we had a confidential diplomacy. And in Syria and Israel, only a few people, and in Turkey, few people knew about it. But when we started the process, there was no war between Syria and Israel, and nobody was, neither in EU nor UN did ask from us this. But we had such a good relations with both sides. After searching some possibilities, we decided that the time is ripe to start it. And in 2008, 20 May, we declared indirect talks between two neighboring states, and it went very well, 5 rounds, and we were very close to start the direct talks until the attacks against Gaza started. Similarly, in 2005, there was a huge tension in Iraq between Sunnis and Shiites. Sunnis were taught that since they are followers of, since Saddam was a Sunni, they were out of politics, and they were more tend to resist in resistance movement. And the Sunni Shiite tension was at the high stake. Before the election in 2005, again with a confidential diplomacy, I was involved, and I was running that mediation as well. We united 6 Sunni groups in Istanbul, and we convinced them to participate in the election. The leader of that group, Tawafuk group, Tariq Hashemi, became vice president representing Sunnis after the election. Why did we do this? Because if there is an instability in Iraq, first we will be affected. We have to look beyond our nation-state territories. If you are living in that region, if there is a tension in Gaza, we are a democratic country, there is a public sentiment, it will be a domestic issue. If there is a tension in Bosnia, again, a domestic issue. Or in Azerbaijan, a domestic issue. We cannot say, let's wait until other actors act. Similarly, in Lebanon, during presidential election in Lebanon, and afterwards, after the election formation of the government, with good intention, good relations with all Lebanese parties, we tried to help political stability there. Therefore, during the ceremony, presidential ceremony of Michel Suleiman, the only guest invited there as special were Turkish Prime Minister and Qatari Emir, because both Turkey and Qatar, we work together, and we try to help. Why? Lebanon is not our border. We don't have much interest in Lebanon, but the interest of Turkey is regional stability. And, as I said, multicultural coexistence. We don't want to see purified cities in our regions. We don't want a purified Srebrenica in Balkans, or purified Mostar, purified Sarajevo. Throughout the centuries, Bosniaks, Serbs, Croats lived together, and they should live together again. Again, we don't want Sunni, Shiite, Kurdish, purified cities in Iraq. We don't want a Shiite, pure Shiite Basra, or pure Shiite, pure Sunni Mosul, or pure Kurdish Erbil. We want them to live together. They are all our relatives. Similarly, in Palestine, we should not allow any change of demographic character of Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the spirit of Jerusalem means the coexistence of Muslims, Jews, Christians together. If one day Israel dreams that there should be a Jerusalem without Arabs as the capital city of Jews, this is the end of the Holy Spirit of Jerusalem. This is the end of the continuation of Abrahamic tradition. This is our approach, and we want to prevail. Similarly, in Caucasia, when we started normalization with Armenia, our perspective was, and still is, a new Caucasia where Armenians, Azeris, Turks, Abkhazians, Georgians, Ossetians, Chechens live together. Therefore, we proposed Caucasian Stability and Cooperation Platform during the Georgian War in 2008 September. Therefore, in Afghanistan today, in order to keep Afghanistan united, we have the command of Kabul, but not that. In the schools Turkey built in the last 4 years, 50,000 children are getting education. In the hospitals we built in Afghanistan, around 1 million people are getting therapy. And Turkey spent $250 million in Afghanistan in the last 3 years as humanitarian aid. And we are training Afghan army. We established 2 PRTs and very active there. Why, you know? Let me give you this and I will try to summarize the rest. I went to Afghanistan in June last year in northern cities, and usually when ministers go to Afghanistan, they go only one city, Kabul, and very close to the airport in order to come back. I visited 5 cities. Is it 5? 6. And in Balh, in Mazar-e Sharif, when I met with the governor of Balh, there were some journalists there. The governor started to say, Mr. Minister, I need school, we need hospitals, we need this, we need that. I called our Consul General and our TICA, Economic Aid Agency Coordinator, and I said, take the notes, we will do all this. When it finished, the journalist said, how strange. He is requesting from you as if he is the governor of Konya. Konya is my hometown in Anatolia. Or as if you are the minister of Afghanistan. I said, yes, he can have the request, because we have such a strong. Balh was the city of Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi, my hometown, Konya. He was born in Afghanistan. He went all the way with his family, with his father, through Iran and came to Konya, my hometown, and produced his famous Mesnevi there. After 2 weeks, interestingly, we went to Sanjak, to Serbian province in Sanjak. The mayor of Sanjak, again, he said, we need a gynecology clinic, we need a school, we need a road, etc. And we try to respond. They don't look whether we have money, we have this, we have that, but historically they think that Turkey can do. This is the image in their mind. And we did. We also built, I will be going there soon to open the clinic which we promised last year. And with excellent relations with Serbia, we will try to develop that underdeveloped region. Why I am giving this example? This is what we should do. We don't want frozen conflicts around us. We want comprehensive settlements. We don't want underdevelopment. We don't want poverty. Why? Because this region should not produce risk for us, one. Secondly, we are the biggest economy there. If there is a stability, it will be in our interest. The 4th principle, maybe you forget what were the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Balance between security and freedom. 0 problems with our neighbors. 2nd, neighboring countries. 3rd, proactive engagement policies in surrounding regions. 4th, balanced and systematic relations with all global powers. Our main strategic objective is integration with the EU. And there cannot be a replacement of this policy. But at the same time, we have excellent, maybe one of the most institutionalized relation of alliance with the United States. And what President Obama called last year as model partnership with Turkey. We want to continue this transatlantic orientation. And as neighbor with Russia, we have excellent relations. Today, Russia is our main trade partner with $40 billion. And we will keep that. With the Muslim world, with China, with others, we want to develop our relations. There is a discussion because of this active foreign policy, whether Turkey is shifting the axis from the west to the east. No. No, there is no shift of any axis. But we want to be effective in all these regions. Our main orientation is our membership to NATO and our accession process to EU. But we can be an efficient member of NATO if we are influential in Afghanistan. Why Turkish soldier is needed in Afghanistan? Not because of being good soldiers. In Afghanistan, because of these cultural links, there is an instruction by our authorities that the gun should not turn to the Afghan people. And Afghan, because we are not enemies, we are there as their friends. We have that cultural affinity. If we are active in Iraq, in Caucasia, in Iran, the main energy route, the main alternative energy supply for EU, is it good for EU or not? Should we close our eyes, turn our back to Iran, to Caucasia, to Iraq? Then where will the natural gas come? Only through Russia. Is it good for the diversification of energy resources? So then these are not, we should forget Cold War logic. Cold War logic has ended. If you are not friend of me, you are enemy of me. This is old logic. Now, these relations are compatible. If we are good, if we make progress in EU integration, it is an asset for our relations with Russia, or our relations with Russia is an asset for EU. These are not against each other. This is fourth principle. The fifth is active international role everywhere. Since I mentioned already, I will not count all these memberships: UN Security Council, G20, Alliance of Civilizations, OIC, ECO, Black Sea Economic Cooperation, etc. We had certain international affinities affiliations in Cold War be extended now in many zones. For example, new zones like in Africa last year and this year. Last year we opened 10 new embassies in Africa, 2 new embassies in Latin America. This year we will be opening another 5 new embassies in Africa. Lastly, we want to change the image of Turkey. Turkey has been seen as a strong hard power throughout the Cold War. Yes, in such a risky environment, we need strong military. But at the same time, we want to be seen as a rising economic power. In the last 7 years, as I said, from 26th, we came to 16th biggest economy. Our objective in 2023, 100th anniversary of Turkish Republic, we want to be one of the 10 biggest economy. And in last global economic crisis, many countries faced problem, we also faced. But no single Turkish bank faced crisis. And in last 2 months, credit rating houses increased Turkish credit rate 4 times. Our economy has performed quite well in economic crisis. Again, as Turkey, we want to be seen as a cultural model, inclusive, respectful, and with different cultural identities in a harmonized manner. Yes, we are Muslim. Yes, we are European. Yes, we are Asian. In China, I can speak on the future of Asia. This should not disturb our European identity. In Brussels, I can speak about the future of European Union, like somebody from Brussels. This is our destiny, because without Turkish history, to be understood well, European history cannot be written. We are part of Europe in all sense. And in Cairo, last week I was there, I gave a lecture in Cairo. I speak somebody like from Cairo. I can refer because in the biggest city of Cairo, there are so many Ottoman monuments. If you take Turkish monuments out of Cairo, a significant part will be missing. And we are part of it. We don't hesitate to say this. If I go to Damascus, I feel that I am from that because we are sharing many things. Or if I go to Sarajevo, it is my city, our city. And these are not against each other. Therefore, we can play a real cultural leading role to ease the cultural tensions, to speak with different cultural identities in the same sophisticated manner. If I speak in Baghdad, I can make reference to 10th century of Baghdad, or in Berlin in 19th century Ottoman Turkish Reich, like here what we did in Dublin. This is positive contribution to the world. The new image of Turkey will be an image of soft power, culturally inclusive, economically prosperous, militarily security providing, stability providing. And such a Turkey will be an asset for European Union to respond to the challenges which I mentioned at the beginning of my speech as the challenges of global order. Thank you very much.